I think this is the absolute most fear that I have ever seen in the crypto market. Not actually everywhere in the market, because generally speaking, Bitcoin is doing really, really well. And so if it was full fear in the market, the price would be down like 30% in a day, right? Well, I'm just talking about sentiment. I'm talking about Twitter. I'm talking about the comment section here. It's crazy. And I'm actually, throughout the last few hours, more and more surprised by the severity of the claims. And for some reason, people seem to forget the longer term idea, the cyclical nature of Bitcoin to some extent, and the fact that it's never only up. But again, just, what was it now? A week or two ago, XRP also hit similar levels as we're seeing today. Many altcoins were at similar levels that we're seeing today. And it's kind of funny. But at that point as well, people were like, oh, you see, it's going to go down to a relief rally. Again, in this case, bulls got trapped because we fell back down. But the funny thing is that it keeps kind of happening in a similar fashion. When things go down, people get really, really scared. And when things come up, funnily enough, they also get scared. But they mostly get scared that they did not buy enough. So it's kind of funny. If you really start thinking about it, what do you want to see? Do you want to see prices go down or up? You might say, well, I want them down. But then when it's happening, you get afraid. Oh, I want them up. But then when it goes up, the comment section is filled with, should I buy more? Should I buy? Should I buy? And that's the funny thing. I like to momentum invest, as I've stated before. I like to go with the trend. When things are doing well, they keep doing better. And I'd say I'm quite realistic in saying that Trump right now with the tariffs, that's again the overarching narrative, is making our only up look like a little bit of only down. Even though, again, it's not that bad. Bitcoin is down 10% or so in just 3 days. But I'll quickly state this. As it currently stands, right, just recently, we had the president of the United States make freaking meme coins. We had him launch a company basically that's buying the freaking top of every single crypto, as right now he's down 25 million on those. But for some reason, people seem more down bad than they were in the 2022 bear market, which is interesting on its own. But I have to add, the reason that to some extent this also does make sense is because back then we had a lot of slashing, a lot of minus 30s, a lot of minus 90s, a lot of that. Oh man, this was I don't want to see it refresh, man. These are not current prices, all right? Oh, man, if only it was that good a time. No. Here we go. All right, it looks disgusting to look at, just absolutely atrocious. But the thing is that a lot of my main alts are doing pretty okay. I mean, I'm not really noticing too bad of a reaction, but when you start looking at the numbers right here, you realize, okay, so Dogecoin, for example, it's hard to pinpoint because I don't remember exactly the price that it was at, but let's just say it almost halved from where it was at not too long ago. And if you start scrolling through, many of these coins have done similar numbers where right now they're at a spot where it's basically criminally cheap. Because if I told you guys like a week or two ago that you'd be able to buy SUI at $3.30, for example, you'd have taken that deal in a heartbeat. And it kind of goes on along this list for a little while, where a lot of coins right now as it stands are at such a freaking cheap spot. But some of them, if we go to, for example, let's quickly go here to some of the most popular meme coins, some of them are actually down like 70% or so from their high points. If we take a look, for example, at, let's just quickly take a look. 𝗵𝗵 down 62%. Trump doesn't really count, but it's down 75%. BONK is down 70%. WIF is down 80%. I don't even want to talk about it. I still have that long open. I want to do stuff to myself. I'm joking, of course. I shouldn't joke about that, but hey, I just meant it's not doing good. Man, Brett here, one of my favorite holdings, is down 75%, and I can kind of go on. These AI coins are completely destroyed, minus 85%. But you still scroll through, it's pure depression, right? And I think that makes up a pretty big part of the market that a lot of you guys on the channel here do not see. I of course do not know exactly what you guys are holding on the channel here in the comment section, but if I had to make a guess, it's mostly not people who are 100% into memes, but those are completely wrecked. And so when somebody says the crypto market really absolutely got destroyed, if they're primarily holding Bitcoin, they're only down like 10% or 7%, right? But if they were mostly, matter of fact, they might most likely still be up 3x from just a few months ago. But if they're mostly bought into meme coins, some specific ones, a month ago, they're down tremendously, 80%, 90% on their money. And that's where the thing gets kind of funny, where from a one angle, that's really a beautiful spot to start from again, because even though it went down 90% and it can go down again 90%, because that's the truth behind markets, it is a better point to start at than obviously peak top. For momentum investing though, it's different because it's not so nice to buy something that's mostly going down. Now, before I move on, guys, I will quickly state that if you're still looking for a platform to trade on, maybe you want to long a crypto, maybe you want to short a crypto, make up your own choices. A link is down below to 𝗏𝘁 is the platform I'm trading on. And I mean, trading on it, I will. Oh, yeah, man, the market is crazy. But for the most part, even though I'm being more cautious than I usually am, ultimately, I feel as if we can't go down that much, but I don't want to put it too bluntly in a video and say, oh, we can't go down anymore. The thing is just, I feel as if we're down so tremendously where from a risk reward perspective, it just makes sense going for it. But then again, I will warn you, if Trump says something crazy here, we might be a little bit more screwed. Anyway, I'll cover this in a second. But before we move on, I've talked about Sol Global a couple of times, but if you've forgotten, they're a publicly traded company trading on the CSE under this ticker, SOL, or OTC here, as you can see, SOLCF. And it was basically previously known for being a private equity company, but they basically switched fully to holding mostly Solana and becoming more a digital asset focused company. I personally kind of dub it like a MicroStrategy for SOL, as their plan is basically to hold and stake Solana while basically ensuring also for themselves long-term growth. I mean, what exactly that strategy is, you can find it over on their website. But regardless, they've basically just completed a private placement with the idea of using the funds to buy more Solana. And I think since transitioning, I believe they actually bought themselves 17,000 Solana or something like that. And I mean, they've been doing quite a couple of side quests as well. You can see right here, this was just announced. Sol Global announced a strategic investment into McQueen Labs for RWA tokenization on Solana. And I think their stock is also up like 600% or so in the past half a year. And I think their goal is just to take this as far as humanly possible, being completely freaking bullish on Solana. And I mean, it does make sense, right? There's always going to be a gap to fill for companies like this. And the probability of doing really, really well, in my opinion as well, is quite high because Solana seems to be one of the hottest things right now. And them committing so much money to make sure they stay on top, I think it's quite smart. And again, they basically keep doing these offerings where the main goal, like I just talked to you about, like 70% at least, is going just straight back into buying more Solana. Anyway, quite a cool company. Yeah, they've been doing pretty amazing. Anyway, let's move on. But check it out if you're interested in something like this. Just like in my opinion, right? Kind of like MicroStrategy, but then for Solana, pretty cool. All right, by the way, it's 2 a.m. Dubai time. I just ordered some more food because I'm going to be here for a while, I think, all right? It's actually almost, oh man, I don't want to look at the time anymore. Anyway, this video I think was kind of interesting. POV, newbie crypto bro experiencing his first 70% drop. Lock in. That's the most important thing anybody can tell you. Just lock the freaking, smack yourself a little bit and understand that this is a freaking rodeo. There's bigger dips ahead. No, but anyway, this was interesting to me as well. So Kaleo said this bull market has barely started. Dips like, while major alts / later ones across the board have barely started to test their previous cycle's all-time highs, are part of the warm-up. The real fun is what happens next, up only soon. If I still had to make a guess, and again, I want to be very, very careful when I keep saying this, but I would still stand by the idea that we have freaking Bitcoin reserves coming up rather soon here. They're being worked on. And people are really overreacting on all this. But that's like I said in my previous video. And I wanted to make a quick little update purely because I feel as if I didn't explain myself well enough, quickly enough. Are we not seeing the bullish underlying narrative? But then again, I keep saying I've never seen as much fear because just quickly afterwards, someone smacks it down saying, you know what's scary? That this is not a sarcastic copy paste. No, it's just him being serious for the most part, or being very strangely cynical or whatever. But regardless, I should say sarcastic. Horse, in this case here, is most likely just very freaking bearish. He's not joking about the fact that this is just the stupidest of the posts. But then I scroll through, and I think a lot of people are just seeing this and loving this as a little breath of fresh air. The counter is, and this is a very important counter, I did state before that I would most likely start selling 1% of my portfolio every single day from 2025 on forward. And I told you afterwards, I'm not doing that because this marks another little, I think, realization point for many. Not necessarily for me, but some people have to learn, right? Some people have to make the mistakes, I guess. I wouldn't say anything about making a mistake, but I would say, I said before, I'm going to sell 1% every single day of 2025. What happens? Well, you notice the market's doing well, and you tend to put that target further and further because you're thinking it's going to be higher. And that's the thing. Most people will never sell the exact top. They'll sell either way too soon or way too late. And I kind of prefer to be on the side of a little bit too soon, because you can basically average your sells out rather than being a bit too late. But the thing is, what if you're selling before what we expect, like a 10x or 15x? The reason I'm saying that is because the crypto market right now has not gained at all as much as it previously has. Yes, Bitcoin has gone on a run, but most alts have gone meh. A counter is a lot of alts have gone well, but just not the alts that previously did well. Like, for example, Ethereum didn't even beat an all-time high every single time previously it had. But what if this time is just different? And that's what they always counter with. What if this time is different? And nobody has an answer to that. Nobody knows exactly what would happen if the market is different. I would just state that if we're looking at Bitcoin's price throughout the years, then whatever is happening right now is really not that big a dent. People are kind of overreacting to it. I'm just going to quickly push this away. As you can see, like what we're witnessing right now, is it really bad? I mean, when you really start looking at it, not really. It's not as panicky as people are trying to make it out to be. I mean, yes, we're down a bit, but I mean, we were down lower just a few weeks ago. And I mean, taking a look at previous bull markets as well, some people have said it's not worth, holding between April, for example, and November of the 2021 cycle. But I'll say this, theoretically speaking, if you were hard buying the top at 64,000, you kept buying the dip, eventually you bought a freaking $30,000 because of your chat that never gives up, you would have been eventually able to flip it for a crazy amount of profit. And the fun thing is, even on this come down here, going from 69,000 all the way down to 33, quickly afterwards, it came back to 48. Now, if you are not able to flip yourself into profit, going from 70K to 30,000 to then almost 50,000, then the mistake is on you, in my opinion. Again, there were kind of some harder moves to make here in the midst. Here it went from 26 to roughly 32,000. I think that's too small a move. And again, after hitting 32, it went all the way towards 17, all the way towards like 15, 16K. Yeah, at that point, it is a very, very steep decline before the next major leg up came. I mean, this one was quite strong, going towards 18,000 and then afterwards towards 25. But even if we consider that to be too little, if you really start thinking about it, it's always just a matter of patience. And I understand many people won't look at it that way, but I'll just reiterate that ultimately, if you believe in the asset, it's not a will it do well, it's a matter of how quickly will it do well. And most people just don't want to wait all this time, which I get 100%. But understand that that's the only thing we're thinking about of, what if we have to wait a long time to turn into a crazy profit? But for looking at the previous cycles, it's never really taken that long, meaning it's never really been the fact, I should say, or it's never happened that this is where things peaked at. It's always been later. Again, we often describe how many months after the halving the peak is at. You can see here roughly 530 days. With this one after the peak, roughly 560 days. And right now we are how long after the halving? We are only about 260 days in. It would be logical if we see the top or something, maybe around September, let's say, of 2025. And whatever happens in the middle there, yes, it can be quite scary. Yes, it can be quite volatile. But ultimately, if there was no volatility, there's also no gains to be made. And that's, again, why I keep reiterating and I keep saying, if you can't appreciate these moves right here, if you can't look at it with positivity, thinking, you know what, it's actually a good opportunity, at least better than it was a while back, then I don't get it. One counter. Again, I like to always counter myself. Some people said, Dusty, you're making me nervous when you counter. I always like to have a little bit of a debate with myself out loud. So hopefully you get both sides. I've already explained my side, which is I buy the dip regardless. I don't care what anybody says, my side. But I always like to give counter examples because ultimately I think to make the most well-informed decisions for your balance, for your portfolio, it is nice to see what others are thinking or what might counter examples or reasons against your thesis be. If I want to open a massive position and somebody explains, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons, I can make a more informed decision. And I'm not your financial advisor. All I'm explaining is my story, my trades, my decisions, etc. But I think if I can name why I would or why I would not do something, you learn more. Even though I'm not trying to say I'm your teacher in that way, I'm just sharing my journey. Anyway, a counter, this is what a lot of people have stated, is that the most bullish narratives for the run to go up are already out there. I think this argument is quite weak, but let's address it quite a little bit further. So the part in that does make sense is that we had Trump coming in. We had Gary Gensler leaving the SEC. We had talks of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and you can kind of fill the blanks in right there, right? We have Bitcoin ETFs, all happened this run. Quite a lot of things when you really start looking back at the beginning of the run, because a bull run tends to last, 3 years, 70 weeks of pretty good up, 70 weeks of crazy up, and then 50 weeks of down. So I'm going to say about 150 weeks or so, about 3 years. Well, that started November of 2022. yeah, we're a bit more than 2 years in. A lot of crazy stuff has happened in that time, of which the craziest things really happened quite recently. And now that they're behind us, what is next to come? The reason it's quite a weak argument is because, generally speaking, many times when Bitcoin went to crazy heights, it was not really based on news. The reason it does again make sense is because now when positive news comes out, Dogecoin products, Solana products, more products of the sort, the price did not necessarily go up that much. Trump's coin got listed on Robinhood. Usually that goes crazy. It didn't, right? But again, the counter to that could be that Trump and Melania were just liquidity suckers. They made the market a little bit weaker right now. And the reason we are reacting, because people keep saying, yeah, well, we are reacting to these traditional stocks like the DeepSeek situation. Why would it hurt us? And I'd counter again by stating, first of all, that is a pretty strange situation. Nobody really fully gets why. It's a little bit of a bubble popping, even though it's not necessarily bubble popping, because if you think about it, why would NVIDIA do bad off of it? I've read so many people's opinions and I still can't get it for myself. It's just the whole theory of value investing to some extent, of how much do you really value a company and how much is based on the idea that you should be buying this because other people are buying it and because it's gonna just go up more, basically the other way, which I always talk about, momentum investing. How much is it really worth? Anyway, that is the discussion that went on there. People are comparing it saying, well, since Bitcoin right now crashed because of all that, it shows there's not as much strength in the market left anymore because also, like I just stated, the Trump and all those things are already in. And again, I counter by saying we have talks of a Bitcoin strategic reserve. We have the president of the United States who just became president like a few days ago, right now talking about changing it up and making this the country of crypto. Yes, some things are not necessarily perfect or optimal, but it could literally be so. Tariffs canceled tomorrow, for example, or tariffs canceled, or this, that. Something of this sort happens, a little quick decision. All of a sudden, market turns back around. If your idea was that we're more volatile now based on what we just stated, the DeepSeek situation, et cetera, what if NVIDIA now breaks back up, goes for a crazy run? All of a sudden, crypto's bull run is also back in. To that extent, I'll say, if we're going to really just only state, oh, it's going down because the bullish narratives are gone and we're overreacting based on tech, for example, tech markets, I'd say, yeah, well, that can always be the case in the sense of there will always be decisions made in the past. There will always be things happening in the future. Some people argued that Trump coming in would be a bearish thing. So now that you can also argue that the bearish thing is now out of the way, you and me, we can agree that Trump was most likely a nice thing. But I also said before, it could be like Gary Gensler where you think it's going to be nice and he messes it up. But I don't think so, though. I still believe Trump, president of the United States, coming in, et cetera, all those things that keep adding up is just way too exciting. And I kind of feel as if people should take a little step back, relax a little bit, realize that maybe if they're so stressed out, they're over-invested to some extent. Take a little breather, take a little relax potion, because it's really just not that bad, man. If you're really stressing out heavily, heavy breathing, I can't do this. Yeah, you're playing the game wrong, because it should never be that stressful to you. Yes, it can be harsh. It can be very uncomfortable to look at your portfolio right now. It can hurt you a little bit like, it's a very bad day. Very logical, right? I told you right now, I had the worst day I've ever had in my trading career, except for Luna. But ultimately, I understand that's part of the appeal. The part that we love so much to some extent is not this crazy pleasure from the pain. No. It's the part of the gains that could come because of the massive volatility. So when things go down, and again, opportunity arises, if you really are sad that it happens and you really want only up, the only way to get that is through either a sort of Ponzi scheme, I guess, or a honeypot, I guess, because there's always going to be downsides. There's always going to be downfalls, and the beautiful part of it is to embrace it and realize that that's where the opportunity lies. And I will buy the freaking dip any day of the week. Right now, XRP trading at 259. I'm thinking it's so freaking low, and I get texts right now today saying, Dusty, but yeah, this is too, I'm so panicking. Know what you hold, know what you're buying in for. I don't get how you can be panicking over something that you realize has the potential to... I've said enough words already. That's about it for this little crypto update. I think soon enough we'll forget all about this happening and we'll be enjoying our gains again. But in the meantime, I will warn, if Trump does something really, really crazy right now in terms of tariffs, like a really crazy announcement, I'm a bit afraid of things. But for the most part, if those things don't happen, I think we're quite good. And at least we're all together, right? If we go down, at least all the monkeys go down together, right? We're together in this one. Man, my voice is cracked. You can't notice it. Maybe you don't notice it, but I'm cooked. If this wasn't going down, I would have definitely not stepped in here to record something. But man, this is crazy, right? I really are. But I'm loving it though. I'm having a good time. I hope you guys are having one too. Peace out.